This is the demo for Transact-SQL row constructors. The first thing I'll do is switch our context to AdventureWorks 2012 and also remove the count of number of rows messages. And I want to show you a table that we'll be working with, the production.culture table. We're going to select all rows from that table. And you'll see I have 8 different rows representing different language names and different language culture IDs. In this next example, I'm going to insert into that table, and notice that I'm giving 3 different column names. So I'm explicitly calling out culture ID, name, and modified date. And under the values clause, I actually have 3 different rows that I'll be inserting. The first row, and notice that it's enclosed within parentheses, and then each value is separated by commas, just as you would do for a regular insert of just one row. But then the difference here is that I have a comma separating each of these. So I have a second row defined right here, and then my third row defined right here, and then a semicolon statement terminator. And by the way, this semicolon statement terminator is not absolutely required, but you do want to start getting used to using it because there will be a point in the future where it will be required for a future version of SQL Server. Let's go ahead and execute this insert. And again, it's one statement, 3 different rows I intend to insert. All right, I inserted it. Let's see if those 3 rows were actually created. And if I look here, I see, yep, there's 3 rows that were inserted. And you can see that they were around the same exact time when the insert operation happened. So exactly the same time. So I have the 3 new rows. And again, the virtue is I didn't have to do 3 different insert statements. I just did one insert statement, 3 different rows. But there's some complexities in behavior because what if I want to insert another 3 rows? And what if one of the rows violates, for example, a primary key constraint? What will happen? Will I have 2 of these rows still get inserted and then the third row will fail? Or will it fail all 3 row inserts? Let's test it out. I get the primary key violation because I'm trying to insert this row, which is already a duplicate value to the row I inserted earlier. And did any of the rows get inserted? Let's check. And they did not. So I still just have the 3 rows I originally did, but not any of the rows as part of the previous statement that I executed. So just be aware this behavior might be desired. You might not want to have any of the rows be partially updated versus having multiple statements where maybe a couple of them would be inserted and one would fail. The behavior is really something you should more be aware of. There's not a good or bad behavior in this scenario. It's just a matter of what are your business requirements. Do you want an atomic all or nothing, or do you want partial updates? One other thing I want to point out is that these row constructors are not just limited to row inserts, but you can also use them for result sets. I'm performing a select culture ID and name from, and then I have a derived table, so to speak, right here. I have it enclosed in parentheses, and I have values, and then my 3 different rows defined here, just as you saw earlier with an insert, very similar to that. But the big difference here is that I have an as, and then I'm calling it culture, and then followed by that object name, I have the list of the 2 different columns. And let me just undo that. I have the list of 2 different columns, culture ID and name. So I have 2 columns associated with this result set. And let's go ahead and execute the statement. And it returns 3 rows as if I was querying an actual table. And this might be useful if you have a set of lookup values or reference values that you don't want to have persisted in a table, or you don't want it to actually be in a temporary table or a table variable, but you do want to essentially create that result set on the fly. This is a way that you can do that using the actual Transact-SQL row constructor functionality. So not just for insert operations, but you can use it for select operations as well.